Hey, Year 11. I wanted to take an opportunity to quickly go through some of the thought processes that went behind my written sample so that as you're writing your own, you're able to look at your structure and consider your word choices and your punctuation. So this is for the sample that I planned in my last video with you, where the woman is struggling with her newborn child. So I'll quickly read through some of these sections and then explain to you, as I've done in the sections by the side, what I was actually aiming to do. So down the small corridor across the hall, the nursery is a dimly lit room crammed full of brand new baby things all clustering around her. Of hanging mobiles, a crib, a change table covered with towels and unused nappies and powder, and toys littered across the floor and stuffed in the cube-shaped shelves, all dimly lit by the gentle yellow glow of the night light. In the corner of the room is an old rocking chair, a downy soft baby blue blanket folded over the back, a thin cushion lying across the seat. So I've modelled this directly off Malouf's description of Troy on page 39, and I would encourage you to do the same thing with your setting. I think that's a really nice way to begin. And by emulating his writing, like mirroring it, but with your own setting, it makes you tie in really clearly with his structure. One thing that you do need to be aware of when you're doing this is the importance of punctuation. You can see here, I'm going to highlight through here, that is all one sentence. It's huge. And if that was poorly punctuated, it would make zero sense. So make sure as you go through, you must be punctuating correctly, otherwise you'll lose it. Okay, here in the next section, I want to emphasize that this woman is tired. She is exhausted. Okay, so look at the words that I've used. She's slumped over, already exhausted, though the day has barely begun. The chair is protesting. She's rocking backwards and forwards, the slow rhythm lulling her back into a dreamy doze. So I'm deliberately using words that are emphasizing her exhaustion. I want to quickly look at this section here. She has not slept, or if she has, it has been for the briefest of moments, a cruel taste that leaves her more tired than before she had laid her head down on the pillow. Her hair, once the proudest feature, sits askew atop her head, a messy nest of pins and loose strands, roughly wrenched back away from her face. Her eyes are dark hollows, small crevices that have been eroded into her face, battered by tiredness the way cliffs are battered by the sea. As the bundle she is holding squawks at her with the gentle tenderness and softness that only a mother's touch can know, and with a lightness that belies her fatigue, she brushes the blankets back and eases him into a more comfortable position. I've modelled this section off Malouf's description of Hecuba, which we have looked at as well in class. So you can see I've started off with the short sentence. I've used dashes, and remember that the dash offers interesting but not essential information. So if I was to read this without the dashes here, her hair sits askew atop her head, a messy nest of pins and loose strands. Makes complete sense. But I add with the dash, once her proudest feature, because I want to emphasize that this woman has lost, in a sense, who she once was. She doesn't recall the pride that she once had there. I also wanted to draw your attention to this section where the bundle she holds squawks at her. And so I want to emphasize here that I'm dehumanizing the child. It's a bundle, it's not a baby, and it's squawking at her. It's not crying. I'm using an animalistic term because I'm trying to emphasize to the reader that she is so overwhelmed that there's almost, she's completely disconnected from this baby. And so I've used the animal terms. I want to also draw your attention to where I have done line drops, where I've started like a new section. So please, please, please do not submit to me a huge big chunk of writing. So I'm going to show, if I get something that looks like this, I'll cry because that's huge if I was to continue. Okay, so you can see that all of a sudden becomes far more intimidating to read and unclear to read. So I'm just going to put this back, oops, as it should be. That's so much easier for me to read and to mark, and it makes it clearer in your head as well. So the way that you do that is as the idea shifts, your line needs to shift. So here, this first section, I'm describing the setting, and that's it. Okay, so that's one key idea. Here, I introduce my character. So I'm talking here, we're in the nursery, I've established that in this first section, and now here, I'm introducing the fact that there's a woman nursing a child. Then I shift again. It's like I'm magnifying in. So you can imagine here, we're in the nursery, it's the setting. There's a woman in the setting with a child, and this is the woman. It's like a close up. I'm zooming in, and each time I do that, I change the paragraph. Okay, I slip it down into a new line. Here, I've got a completely new break. Okay, so I've actually left the gap as opposed to here where I've just gone under. So this is all part of the same kind of concept, but the idea is shifting. Here, I'm actually shifting time and shifting what's happening. So this whole first section is in the present. She's in the nursery, she's nursing the baby, and she's tired. New paragraph, she remembers back before she had this child. She didn't realize it was going to be like this. So I've moved from the present into the past through her internal monologue. Okay, that's why this is a whole separate section. From here, I go to a new section as well because now I'm talking about the husband. Okay, so I've shifted from her internal monologue to a flashback of when she fought with her husband. And here I'm bringing it back to the present. So think of if you're changing location, if you're changing time frames, or if it's a really significant shift in the idea, I want you to please do an entirely new paragraph. If you're within the same kind of realm of the idea, but you are shifting slightly, like I'm doing here, just line drop it. I want to show you the dialogue as well. New speaker equals new line. So don't you think I would give anything to trade places with you? He had flashed out, for you to be the one to leave and I the one to stay. New line. Would that you could, she had bitten back. For then you would know what it is to be so wholly consumed by something, so completely taken over that you no longer remember yourself. They had stood there, pain etched into each of their faces. Okay, so when the husband speaks, he gets his own section. When the wife speaks, we line drop here and she gets her own lines. So you take turns, you always line drop in between the speakers. Here, just your grammar, so quotation marks, would that you could, the comma goes inside the quotation marks because here the comma is signaling the end here of her speech. So comma, quotation marks, she had bitten back, comma, quotation marks, and then we capitalize the next section, so then you would know what it is to be so wholly consumed. Okay, and then that stays, and here the full stop goes once again inside those quotation marks. If dialogue, I encourage you to practice your dialogue, but do just make sure that it's a new speaker, new line, otherwise it becomes really difficult to follow and it gets really confusing. Please use italics. You get to type this piece, so you just do that either with Control I or with this icon up here, but Maloof does that, so go for it, please do. Switch in between your long and your short sentences. So here, as she had waved her husband back to work, she looked down at the baby in her arms, barely 3 weeks old, and felt like a fraud. How could she take care of such a feeble thing? Stan had gone to work and returned home, his face beaming as he had reached out to hold his son, and a pang of jealousy had shot through her, a molten glow of anger. He had lived, he had gone outside, and she had remained alone with this baby that did nothing but cry and eat and sleep. All right, so there's a nice mix there. I've got the long flowing sentences, but then when I really want to emphasize how she's feeling, I shorten it. Quick, sharp, bang. Even up here, isolated, full stop, forgotten, full stop. I'm emphasizing these words so that it's almost like, like a bang. She's isolated, alone, forgotten. I'm emphasizing this to the reader by giving you sentence fragments. Don't do it all the time, don't overuse them, but when you've got a really key word, go for it. And Maloof also uses questions, so please do also use your questions. Line drops can also be used in order to show emphasis. So here, and life is full. I deliberately didn't put that here. I deliberately put that on a new line because I wanted that to be like this final kind of happy moment. I think those are the main things. As you read this piece, hopefully that you're seeing that I'm linking to the prompt, and I've given you some ideas here where I'm emulating Maloof. So I'm primarily wanting to talk here about the fact that this woman feels lost in her role, just as Priam and Achilles are lost in theirs. Achilles is the warrior and Priam as king. What ultimately brings them together is their humanity, and that's how they come to agree over Hector's body, and they come to understand that both of them are human and that there's an essential human experience that gives them purpose. So I wanted this woman to feel lost in her role as mother, to feel like she's lost to her identity, and by the end of the short story, just as Priam and Achilles find who they are through their relationships, I wanted this woman to once again regain her identity through her relationships. So that's kind of a really quick rundown of some of the things that I've done in this story, mainly about structure. So keep those things in mind as you go through yours, and good luck.